Hello and welcome to today's lesson. The idea of this video is that you can play it on your phone or laptop or whatever and just follow along as if it was an actual real lesson. So first of all, please make sure you've got your exercise book, your equipment, paper, whatever you're working on at the moment in front of you, and put down today's title, date, CWK, and attempt the do now questions. Please make sure you do your do now questions in full sentences. That way when you come back to look at your information, it'll actually make sense rather than just being three random answers close together on a page. At this point, you're going to need to pause the video because I'm not going to play for the whole time. You're just going to need to pause it, write down your answers, and when you're ready, hit play again. Okay, so let's go through some of the answers here. So what effects did Cyclone Pam have? Well, a wide range of possible answers for this question. Destruction to houses for 90,000 people is a really important one, but also the farmland that was damaged. As a result, there was a loss of an estimated $2.5 million. So a huge social impact in terms of the loss of housing, but a huge economic impact in terms of the cost to the economy and the people. What happens to cyclones as they travel over land, and why is this? Well, they very quickly start to lose energy and will eventually sort of fizzle out, and that's because they get their energy from the sea and the air rising, and that doesn't tend to happen as much on the land as it does in the sea. Finally, what is counter-urbanisation and why does it happen? Counter-urbanisation is the process of people moving from urban or town areas to the rural areas or the countryside. So counter is means sort of opposites, the opposite of urbanisation. Why does this happen? Well, there are many different possible reasons, push and pull factors, but a common reason would be the fact that housing can be much cheaper in rural areas than it can in urban areas. So please grab your green pens, check your answers, correct any corrections that you need to now. When you're ready, we'll move on. So what is drought? Drought is a climatic hazard, just in the same way that cyclones and hurricanes are. It's a hazard, it poses a risk to people. Drought is when there is a very long period of very low precipitation or rainfall, leading to a shortage of water, and so we get scenes like we can see here. If you think back to last summer, we had a period of drought in the UK where it was very, very hot and there was very limited precipitation. So we're going to have a look at a map and we're going to see where drought occurs in the world. I want you to have a think about where the drought is occurring, and can you spot a link to last lesson where we learned about air pressure? So let's have a look at the map on the next slide. Now this is a particular kind of map. Just have a quick think for 2 seconds. What do we call this kind of map? If you're thinking of the word choropleth map, you're correct, well done. So we've got different data displayed using different colours. So we can see down in the bottom right corner, we've got the drought severity. So the red areas are extremely high, so they experience very severe droughts, up into the kind of whitish, very pale yellow colour, where there's very low drought severity. Droughts are not a problem there. So the first task is to describe where droughts occur. So again, this needs to be in full sentences and you need to be writing that down. So we're looking for patterns. Well, hopefully you can see straight away there is a big mess of red through the north of Africa and bits of the Middle East. And then further to the south, towards the sort of tip of Africa, but not quite, there's another patch there. We've also got an area of quite a lot of drought in the north of Australia, and interestingly down the west coast of South America. Now there is a little bit of a pattern here. If we put on our equator line, we can see that drought doesn't tend to occur near the equator. However, if we add on the Tropic of Cancer in the north and the Tropic of Capricorn in the south, those two lines go right through those really big areas of drought. So there is a definite pattern there, and when we're describing where drought is occurring, we need to be describing these areas, referencing the tropics, as that is a place where we tend to see a lot of drought. That's not to say it's the only area where there is drought. We can see in areas in Asia and North America, certainly, there is drought as well, and actually some areas in the tropics are not that prone to drought. There are going to be a variety of factors why this is. It might be that they're very close to the ocean and therefore they're going to experience less drought. It might be because there are mountains nearby or they're higher up, which causes more rainfall. So please complete task 1 now. Okay, so task 2 then, what is the link to air pressure? So thinking back to last lesson, you should remember that at the equator it's very hot and therefore we have air rising, and as a result we have an area of low pressure. So around that green line we can see there is very low risk of drought because there is actually quite a lot of precipitation. And the purple lines, the tropics, those are areas of high pressure. As I say, hopefully you remember that air rises at the equator, and as it does it starts to spread out and it moves north and south of the equator, and around the tropics the air starts to descend because it cools down and starts to drop. And so we have 2 bands of high pressure, one at the Tropic of Cancer, one at the Tropic of Capricorn, and so we tend to see actually quite a lot of drought in those areas because there is high pressure. Again, if you remember from last lesson, we said that areas with high pressure have quite stable weather. It doesn't tend to change too much. This is repeated the further north we go, around kind of Europe, North America. We have another band of low pressure, and actually at the North and the South Pole we have another band of high pressure as well. So what links are there to air pressure? Well, drought is far more common in areas of high air pressure. If you need to make any corrections or changes to your work, please do so now. Okay, next task is to add a subheading, Drought in California. California, you can see on the map of the United States there, is located in the southwest of the United States. A very famous state, lots of famous features and locations, quite popular with tourists as well as people living in the area. Now, California is an area that experiences quite a lot of drought, despite the fact that it's located quite close to the coast. There is a very uneven precipitation in California. It's not distributed evenly at all. Some years are very wet, some are very dry, and certainly from summer to winter there is a big disparity. It can be very hot in the summer and quite wet in the winter. As a result, there isn't enough storage areas for water. The people can't store enough water between the winter and the summer to try and balance out the inconsistencies. What's more, the population has doubled, but water sources have not. They've remained the same. So we've got more people living in an area and no additional water being added. The jet stream, which hopefully you remember from 2 or 3 lessons ago, is a kind of band of hot air that moves around the Earth, and it passes through California quite often, causing it to be much warmer than other areas. Okay, what I'm going to ask you to do now is to create a case study on the drought in California. You've got some resources on this screen here, a couple of pictures showing you a river that at one stage was obviously filled to capacity, almost at the point of flooding, not quite, and then when it was in the drought, and you can see the dramatic difference there. If you look at the height of the water on the bridge, really quite remarkable there. So I'm going to put some resources on Show My Homework to help you do this, but your task is to make a case study of the drought in California. Using the resources that are on Show My Homework to help you, you need to include some basic facts about when and where it happened, including a sketch map, kind of like the one we've got. You need to look for things like causes, effects, and anything you can find about the management of the drought as well. So pause the video, pop back to Show My Homework, download those resources and complete your case study. This should probably take you about 25 minutes or so to be doing it in detail. So pause the video and off you go. Okay, well done for completing your case study. If you've missed out impacts or you've not included these impacts, I'd like you to add them to your case study. Please do this in either a table or a mind map or in some way that you can code them: social, environmental and economic. Just as a quick refresh, social is anything linked to people, Environmental is anything linked to nature, and economic is anything linked to money. So we'll do an example just to begin with. Water in the river decreased, that would be an environmental impact because it's going to have an impact on nature. Farmers in Central Valley lost $810 million during 2015. That's an economic impact because it resulted in a loss of money. Arguably, there is a social impact there as well because that loss of money is probably going to lead to things like job losses or loss of wages for people. So, pause the video, add these to your case study, please. One final impact of drought is wildfires. There are wildfires naturally, it's something that occurs. There are wildfires that are started by people, but when there is drought, the chances of wildfires happening increases. And additionally, the damage those wildfires will cause increases dramatically when there is drought. Just as you imagine if you had some wet leaves and wet wood, it's not going to burn very quickly. If you've got dry leaves and dry wood, it's going to burn much, much faster. So wildfires are a serious risk. Please add that to your case study. Okay, you're now able to go back to Show My Homework and complete the quiz that reviews today's lesson. Remember, you need to score 80%